Hello, today I am demonstrating banana bread muffins. And to start, I'm going to measure out all of my ingredients, make sure I have all the equipment that I'm going to need, and make sure that I have mise en place. So my first ingredient is going to be 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. So I'm going to go ahead and just measure that into a small bowl. And I'm going to use a spoon to spoon my flour into the cup, so that way I make sure that it doesn't get packed down. And then I will use a leveler to level it off. So I'm just going to fill my flour until it's overflowing, and then just use that leveler to level it off. And then the same thing with my 1/2 cup. All-purpose flour is just a white flour, and it has either been bleached or unbleached, depending on what you buy, but it's just the general kind of default for baking. I'm going to go ahead and dump that 1/2 cup into a separate bowl, because I'm going to need to use that 1/2 cup for measuring sugar. For sugar, I need 3/4 cup. Generally, measuring cup sets don't come with a 3/4 measuring cup. So I'm going to do a 1/2 plus a 1/4 to equal 3/4. Sugar does not come packed, so I can go ahead and just scoop and level. Half of a cup plus a 1/4 cup for my 3/4 cup. Next, I have a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. This recipe calls for baking soda, which is just a base, which means that we should have an acid in our recipe. And our acid today is actually going to be the bananas. You don't think of bananas maybe as acidic, because you would maybe think of more like citrus fruits, but there is acid in the bananas, so that will react with the baking soda. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. 1/3 cup of vegetable oil. And so to properly measure the oil, I'm going to go ahead and get down at eye level and pour till 1/3 cup. Perfect. I'm also going to need 1/3 cup of milk. And so instead of dirtying another dish, I'm going to actually just fill this up till it gets to 2/3 full. And then 2 large eggs. Generally, a carton of eggs in a grocery store are large, so you'll just want to make sure that you have 2 of them. A teaspoon of vanilla extract. And 2 ripe bananas, and it does say mashed. It actually will tell us when to do that in the recipe, so we'll just go ahead and get started, and I'll mash them in the bowl that the recipe says. First step is to preheat our oven to 375 degrees. So I have my oven going now, and then it says to line or spray 12 muffin tins with cooking spray and set aside. So I have just lined them just to make cleanup a little bit easier, but you can do it either way. Then it says a medium bowl to mash the bananas. I've got some bananas that are a little bit older here, that will actually just make it easier for me to mash them, because they'll be a little softer and have kind of that richer flavor. If you have really fresh bananas, that's fine. They may just take a little bit extra effort to mash them up. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take a fork. You could also use a potato masher, and then mash my bananas. Next up, I am going to take a large bowl and mix my dry ingredients into there. And so My directions say to whisk together the flour. There's my 1 cup and my 1/2 cup, my baking soda, sugar, and my salt, and my cinnamon, which it looks like I forgot to measure out. 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. Let me just get that real quick. So I'm just gonna whisk those up. And then it says to set it aside, and then we'll go ahead and stir together our wet ingredients. From here, I'm going to whisk the oil, milk, eggs, and vanilla into the mashed bananas. So I have my mashed bananas here. My oil and milk are in this measuring cup. And then I have my vanilla. And then my eggs, I'm going to want to make sure that I crack them into a separate bowl. So that way if I get any shells, they're a little bit easier to pull out. I didn't, so I can just go ahead and put those in there. And either use that fork or you can use your whisk just to whisk all of those liquids together. Then it says to make a well in the center of the dry ingredients. That basically means to just push the dry ingredients to the sides. The purpose of this is so that we can really just fold the dry into the wet, and so we don't overmix the muffins. And then I'm going to pour my wet ingredients into the center. And then I'm going to stir. It says with a wooden spoon. I'm just using a spatula because that's what I have. Until the dry ingredients are moistened, but still lumpy. So as you can see, I'm kind of just like stirring it, rotating it, folding it in. I'm still looking for a very lumpy batter once it's all finished. But I do want to make sure that all of the dry ingredients are incorporated. If you're a big fan of banana chocolate, you could go ahead and throw in some chocolate chips right now into your batter. At this point, that looks perfect to me. I want to make sure that I don't overmix the batter because that will make the muffins or any quick breads tough. And then I'm going to divide the batter evenly into the muffin tins. We want to fill the muffin tins about 2/3 of the way full, not 2/3 of a cup. I'm just going to use a cookie scoop to scoop out my batter, and I'll probably need about 2 per muffin tin. Now that I have my muffin tins 2/3 of the way full, I'm actually just gonna do, this is just a nice little trick, is just kind of pat them down onto your countertop. This will help just make sure that they're all even. You can add a little bit of batter to any that might just be a little bit not full enough. Whack them down again. That will help also get any air bubbles out of the batter. And then they're ready to go in the oven. I'll bake for about 17 minutes until they're golden brown on the top. All right, my muffins are done baking. There's a couple of ways you can tell and make sure that they are finished cooking. The first is to kind of stick your finger in the middle, and if it bounces back, it's done. If you guys can see on this one, I took them out a little bit too early and my finger stayed indented. So if I come over to this one and I tap on it, it does just stay up. It doesn't indent in. The other way is to grab a toothpick, stick it in the center, and if that comes out clean, then you'll know you're done. And so there you have it, your final product. Nice and steamy hot banana bread muffins.